Ashley, thank you for a very generous introduction and a warm welcome back to Farragut. Today is both exciting and nostalgic for me. And although you graduating seniors had no choice in the matter, thank you for letting me spend a few minutes with you and your families this morning on this very important day. First of all, congratulations to each of you. Getting here has involved hard work on your part. Consistent with Farragut's core values, you have persevered through COVID and other challenges. You can be proud of what you've accomplished. Enjoy this day and celebrate it in some sensible fashion. It's also worth taking a moment to reflect on the ways you have been privileged to have been educated here at Farragut in the United States. In your history courses, you have studied civics, a subject that many high schools no longer teach. You have also had leadership training, something that is rare in high schools. You have also had the advantage, which I did not, of having classmates who are both male and female, whose skin color is different from yours, and who have different national heritages. That's an advantage because of what we can all learn from one another. Your class gets one other special shout out this morning because it includes 3 Ukrainians. And without notice, I'd like to ask the 3 of you just to stand briefly for a moment. We would like to salute you and your countrymen and women for the inspiring courage that they have shown. You graduate with our admiration and best wishes. You will always be a part of the Farragut family. Finally, your class has also benefited from Farragut's being here in a democratic country committed to the rule of law, something that we can easily take for granted. If instead of being seated here in St. Petersburg, Florida, we were all celebrating a graduation in St. Petersburg, Russia, your futures would be very different. In our country, the president alone cannot declare war, cannot start a war. The president is accountable to the people, not the reverse. And we as citizens are free to criticize the government, and if it oversteps its authority, take it to court before an independent judge, as well as having a free media that can report on government mistakes and abuses of power. So, seniors, be appreciative of the protections the United States guarantees us. Your generation, all of you, will soon become custodians of the national values to which our country is committed. To help you keep those values in mind, if you look under your chairs, you will find a copy of the Constitution to take with you. You will need these values as we, as a civilization, seek to move beyond racial divisions, to end our gruesome epidemic of gun violence, and rebuild our sense of national interest and common purpose. But enough about you. I want to say a word about what it's like to be asked to be a graduation speaker. I know final exams were stressful for you, but being asked to speak at graduation is worse. No one actually says to you, be sure and say something inspiring, or tell them something they will remember, but you know that's what they're really thinking. I do remember the day that I graduated and I was sitting where you are. It was a very hot day, much hotter than today. And the person who introduced the graduation speaker said, after he starts to talk, you're going to forget how hot it is today. After about 5 minutes, my friend Pate Snively turned to a couple of us and he said, "Have you forgotten how hot it is?" We said, "No." That's about what I remember. But we're going to shoot higher than that today. But what to talk about? I have a friend who's frequently asked to speak, and he says, "I always wonder what I should talk about." So I ask my wife, "What should I talk about?" And she says, "You should talk about 1 minute and then sit down." I will be brief, but not that brief. The world that you are about to enter is changing rapidly. In just your lifetimes, change has fundamentally transformed our lives. Facebook, electric cars, Apple Watches that can take an EKG of your heart and send it to your doctor, an essay written with artificial intelligence. And with the Webb telescope, we can today watch what was happening far away 100 million years ago. It's a little hard to wrap our brains around that notion. But in your lifetimes, change will be even more rapid, even more stunning. All of that suggests that you will be continually learning all of your lives. Lifelong learning is no longer a matter of explaining to your grandparents how to use Siri. Whatever your next steps are, you will continue learning. Jackson Brown, the author of Life's Little Instruction Book, reminds us every person you meet knows something that you don't. Learn from them. Your exciting future will require you to be both curious and flexible, and perhaps to reinvent yourself mid-career. I went into government for a job focused on international trade, about which I knew very little. Later, my legal career was centered on a U.S. law that prohibits Americans from paying bribes to foreign government officials. It's a law that didn't even exist when I was in law school. So stay nimble. If you haven't decided on your college major yet, that's okay. So my question for you today is this. Looking ahead at a fast-changing world, what skills do you think you will need to be effective leaders? I'm going to take a sip of water and ask you to take a moment and think of 3, and then we'll compare notes. My first one may surprise you. A recent survey asked Australian corporate executives, "What do you dislike most about your lawyers?" By a wide margin, the commonest answer was, "They don't listen. I call, and about halfway through my explanation of why I called, they interrupt to start to give me an answer. They don't listen well." The inability to listen effectively is not limited to Australian lawyers. It has become a national problem in our country, polarizing our society. Dogmatic, extreme voices from any direction, left, right, or otherwise, are inherently arrogant when they suggest that their opinion is the only right one and that any contrary or different perspectives are not worth hearing. This presumptuousness can divide families, it can end romances, and it frequently incapacitates the Congress of the United States. So how to be a good listener, particularly with someone when you're with someone with whom you disagree. Not interrupting is a good start. And rather than responding with something like, "That's ridiculous," or "You're wrong," you might say, "That's interesting." Then mirror back what you heard by saying, "Let me see if I got that right. What I heard you say was," and then summarize what you heard the other person say. See if you get a softer version back. Then maybe a friendly question like, what are some of the things that have caused you to think that? If you can get a thoughtful back and forth going, you may not convince one another, but you probably both learn a little something and come away as friends. The reason I know this can work is that I've seen it work firsthand with young lawyers from Israel and Palestine, two societies that have been at each other's throats for generations. Leaders with good listening skills and an ability to see various sides of an issue are better problem solvers. They're better at developing sensible compromises. They're better at spotting misinformation. They're better leaders. Effective listening skills can be a powerful tool in your leadership toolbox. Number 2, be positive and optimistic. In my experience, positive thinking and optimism are often self-fulfilling prophecies. As kids, we learned this from the little engine that climbed the mountain puffing, "I think I can, I think I can." Winston Churchill put it a little differently. He said, "If you think you can do it, you are halfway there." And if you combine a can-do attitude with perseverance, one of Farragut's core values, even greater results are possible. If someone forced me to name the single most important thing in any accomplishments I may have had, I would have to say persistence. Other people have been smarter, more aggressive, had greater resources, but persistence is a secret sauce. In my family, where my grandkids call me Pops, they have coined the term poptimistic. And if you are positive and tenacious in a job or a project that benefits society and improves the common good, you can make an even bigger difference. The project that Ashley referred to, helping 25 newly independent countries develop new legal systems based on the rule of law, grew out of a simple conversation at lunch a friend and I had. The State Department was very skeptical. The American Bar Association, highly reluctant to do such a thing, but after a year of discussions, they both agreed. Ultimately, more than 5,000 American lawyers and judges, from young lawyers to Supreme Court justices, participated as unpaid volunteers in helping those 25 countries. They thought they could make a difference, and their public service, public-spirited work changed the lives of millions of people in Central Europe. The last leadership skill I will suggest is easy to remember because you already know it. A prominent rabbi I recently heard being interviewed was asked, if you had to distill the essence of Judaism into a single sentence, what would it be? He said, that's easy. Treat other people the way you would like to be treated. I said, wait a minute, that sounds like the Golden Rule, which is a Christian concept. Then I learned that Islam teaches that you are not a true believer until you, and I quote, wish for others what you wish for yourself. Hinduism teaches, quote, do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. In fact, all major religions have adopted some variation of this principle. Now, if you think I've wandered off topic, stop for a moment and think about democratic principles and national values that are based on this same idea, treating others the same way you would like to be treated. One example is found in our Declaration of Independence in the phrase that all men are created equal. That principle, which we have updated to both men and women, embodies the concept of mutual respect and reciprocal kindness. The same principle is inherent in the constitutional guarantee that we are all entitled to equal protection of the laws. And this is a principle that applies across religious, ethnic, and racial lines. I should note that this principle is not a perfect fit for every situation. For example, it would not be a good slogan for Farragut's wrestling team. If you're trying to pin your opponent, you really shouldn't be hoping for the opposite at the same time. Just as robust democratic debate is not a good plan if you're conducting a symphony orchestra or leading a battalion of Marines. But this principle of treating others the way you would like to be treated, mutual respect and reciprocal kindness, is a valuable leadership skill. It's not complicated, even though it seems to be easier said than done. You can remember it, and it is powerful. It belongs in your leadership toolkit. With that, congratulations once again. Enjoy the great adventures that are ahead of you. Each of you can make a difference, so make the world a better place. And as future leaders, remember, learn to be a good listener, stay positive and persevere, and, as the rabbi said, treat other people the way you would like to be treated. Have fun in the process, and go get them.